Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today in Titletown Packers podcast. My name is Griffin. You can follow me on Instagram at AllDayPackers, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Bron, who you can follow on Instagram at Lambo.Leapers. And we are coming back to you after another Packers victory, number 2 on the year over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bron, it was everything we hoped it would be, right?
Yeah, it was. What a game. A lot of craziness and a weird final score of 14-12, but a lot to talk about as well, Griff. So excited to be here with you.
14-12. Let's just say we did not nail our score predictions. Didn't really see 14-12 happening.
No, we didn't, but it was definitely a unique game in a lot of ways, but the difference between most Packers games versus Tom Brady's Buccaneers or Patriots is that they won this one.
Yeah, the second win of Aaron Rodgers over Tom Brady head-to-head. I believe they are now 2-3. So let's hope they meet in the playoffs once again, assuming this is Brady's final year, so we can tie up that record, right? So we don't have to live an eternity of Rodgers having a losing record against Tom Brady. It means nothing. It really means nothing because neither quarterback played particularly well in this game. Neither offense did. This game was definitely about the defense. Hot take.
Rodgers played well. I thought Rodgers played well.
Rodgers played well enough, but it's not like this wasn't like a career game for him, which is disappointing in some ways because I thought it was going to be.
Well, just because the stats don't show that doesn't mean – I felt like he's all the way back. I think he's all the way back. I feel like he's ready to rock now. He played very excellent football. The only thing he did was throw that pick. To me, he's all the way back. I think that the game that he had from a throws standpoint didn't miss a single throw, in my opinion. I don't know what happened on that pick. Robert Tonyan got held, everybody thought. But other than that throw, I feel like he didn't really miss a single throw.
It was a weird pick. We were talking on the phone that he really doesn't throw interceptions when he rips it like that without hesitation. Definitely a strange one. But early on in this game, we were talking on the phone as well, and I was saying that I thought this game was going to be – Rodgers was, 8 of 9 with like 178 yards or something like that and 2 touchdowns at halftime. I thought this was going to be a game like Week 13 against the Eagles in 2020 where he just doesn't miss the entire game and it goes down as one of the best games of his career. Or that Raiders game from 2019, Week 7 – I thought it was going to be that kind of game, but as soon as Aaron Jones fumbles that football, what do you know? We lose the momentum, and things go terribly downhill.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I look back at the way that game went, like you said, with Aaron Jones fumbling there, it happens. Fumbles happen. You can't expect Jones to go an entire season without fumbling, but we talked about that was a big thing, the turnovers and trying to make sure that those don't happen. And Jones was guilty of it in the NFC Championship game against the Bucs in 2020. And like we talked about, he fumbled in that game, and it cost us big time. And we were lucky that that didn't cost us again here. But, he got hit really hard by Vita Vea from behind, and he's trying to get in the end zone. But like I said, luckily it didn't end up biting us. And but to me, Aaron, we'll get right into it, Griff. I thought he was precise, convicted with his throws. And to me, he just looked like the quarterback that we've seen for so many years. Off the play action, his footwork was remarkable in this game to me. A lot of the stuff he was doing on the RPOs, the footwork was just solid all around. And he was making a lot of impressive throws, and even towards the latter half of the game, he was making some nice deeper throws, including to guys like Allen. And the stuff that he was doing off the RPOs to guys like Romeo and Randall, I was just really, really impressed. Everything was clicking to me until the second half came around, and then things just started to tighten up because the Buccaneers are really good on defense. We can't forget how good that secondary is. That's a part of their team that's really not hurt. That's still the Buccaneers defense, which has been one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL over the last 3 years. So I'm thrilled with that game. The outcome was the only thing that matters because that's a really tough team. We're really banged up on offense. People don't want to talk about that. People just want to talk about that the Buccaneers were very banged up. But we were banged up too. We have a returning David Bakhtiari who's then getting subbed in and out with Yosh Nijman. So I was just pleased for the most part on offense.
Yeah, overall efficiency-wise, I don't think it was a really impressive game from Rodgers, especially when you consider anything after the first 3 drives. After the Jones fumble, But there were, even in the second half, there were some really just great prime Rodgers throws. Like, I'm thinking about that slot fade to Lazard in the fourth quarter. You remember that one over Antoine Winfield? That was just a beautiful drop in the bucket. It looked like he was hitting Devontae on that play. Like, it looked that easy for him. That's what it's like throwing to a guy that he trusts. He had a couple of other really nice ones. A really nice one to Romeo on the opening drive on the sideline on a quick little out. Like, I want to see it from the back end zone camera to see how tight that window is, but from the broadcast angle, it definitely looked like that window was closing fast, and he was able to rip it in there. This was such an RPO-heavy game. He was getting the ball out of his hands so quickly, and it's hard to find a quarterback who rips the ball on an RPO, fakes it to the running back, takes it, and just rips it better than Rodgers does. You remember the 40-yarder to Cobb in the first half? Like, that window is closing so fast, and it's already small, and he doesn't even set his feet on it. He just rips it, and his release is so fast. This game, you're right, he did make some throws that remind you of the back-to-back MVP, but overall, this offense was just really terrible, and you have to give credit to the Bucs defense. And the weird thing is that my first instinct is to blame it on the Aaron Jones fumble, because it feels like whenever something like that happens to this offense, we talked about this on the preview podcast, it feels like whenever something like that happens to the offense, they just kind of shut down, and they're not able to recover from it. But then I'm also thinking, like, how does that make any sense, though? Because we talked a lot about momentum last week, how momentum is real, but right after that fumble, the Bucs then have a fumble of their own, forced by Quay Walker. Great play by the rookie. But they fumble. You would think that the momentum just comes right back to us and we're able to keep it rolling, but we're not. So maybe, I'm coming around to the thought of maybe this just, we finish overall, 6 of 11 on third down. Maybe we were just always going to finish 6 of 11, and, it's just variance that we went 5 for 5 on the first 5 third downs.
Well, it is just one game, Griff, and we had guys out, and it's hard to take much from it, but I will say I like the way the offense played in a lot of areas. In the first half, it was really encouraging to see them move the ball like that on a great defense, but it's hard to do it against that defense, to me. I think that's a great group, and it's hard because that's a great team, and they want to win too. It's very hard to keep that kind of thing rolling. The momentum part of what you're talking about, I think with Aaron Jones' fumble, yes, that ducks you a little bit. You're not rolling like they were, then they'd be up 21 and 21-3. But it didn't happen. That's okay. But it's a little demoralizing to get all the way down there again and fumble. Then the Buccaneers, but the problem was, I think, going into the second half now, we weren't blowing them out. It was kind of a different mentality. So the things changed a little bit. The Bucs felt like they could hang around and still had a shot. That was the difference. And then they really tried to play their hearts out on defense and do everything they could to keep the offense in it. And the Brady offense couldn't capitalize because of what our defense was doing. The fumbles were costly for them too. But again, those things are a little more. They have more variability. Fumbles do. They aren't a result of momentum, but they do cause changes in momentum. But they're definitely not a result, I would say, of momentum. So again, that's a lot of different topics within the concept of the game entirely, which to me is two really, really good teams playing each other, depleted, with the defenses both pretty much healthy for the most part, and the better defense probably came out on top, and I think the better offense probably came out on top as well for that game.
Yeah, a lot of people are giving Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense excuses, maybe rightfully so, because they were out so many players, but you mentioned it, a lot of people are forgetting, it seems like, that the Packers were also out their fair share of receivers, and to begin with, to start this season, we didn't have that much to play with. This has always been the offense that we've had, and I said it on the preview that maybe it's going to be easier for Green Bay to adjust to all the injuries because losing Sammy Watkins is not nearly the same for us as losing Mike Evans is for Tampa Bay, right? I think the biggest difference in this game is that against where you have two depleted offenses going up against great, really talented defenses, the Buccaneers defense is maybe the best in the league. They are just so well coached. Todd Bowles is such a great defensive mind. They do everything really well at all levels of the field. But I think the biggest difference is the offensive coaching staff, because the Buccaneers, Tom Brady has no one to throw to that he really wants to look to on his first read, right? But they didn't change anything. They stuck with 11 personnel. It's a very static offense. They don't do any of the motion stuff. They ran like 8 play action plays. Like, that's the biggest difference when we're able to just play man coverage, which we did quite a bit of in this game, surprisingly. When we're able to just play man coverage and match up against your receivers, you just have nowhere to go with the ball. Our successful drives and our successful plays on offense came as a result of Matt LaFleur scheming this thing up, because he knows we can't go one-on-one with these guys because the Bucs defense is so good. So I think that's really that was the key to the game. Those first 3 offensive possessions, the first 2 touchdowns, were really key to the game. They proved to be. We would have wanted to score more points after that, but they did prove to be enough points to win the game. And I think that a lot of that credit has to go to Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, and another thing we haven't really touched on is the fact that we really could not get the running game going, but it seemed like they stuck to it enough. There were times where I kind of wanted them to go to it a little earlier than they did, or in a drive, but because it was just hard to really get anything moving in the passing game, especially. Rodgers was hitting guys for short gains, and it's just like difficult to find open guys, and the pressure was there because they have a great pass rush, a great defensive front. It's just difficult to commit to kind of navigate through that, especially when we don't have a ton of super talented guys that are going to beat that secondary. It's just hard. Like, the matchups are hard. They do not lean in our favor from our offense to their defense. It's just the way it was based on the personnel we had. So for that reason, you look at it and you have to accept the result of the win. And the score only dictates so much because it's dependent on who you're playing. It's not like, oh, we only scored 14 points while, every other team is scoring at will in this league. It's like, well, we just played maybe the best defense in the league, and we put up enough points to win, and that's all that matters. And I'm not at all worried about the offense. I don't feel like they performed inadequately. I feel like it was perfectly fine, and we won the game, and that to me is the most important thing. And I'm excited to see where this offense goes from here, because there was a lot to build on in that game, and I think there was some steps forward as well.
I wouldn't say I'm not at all concerned, but I am expecting and hoping that this offense is going to be able to make several steps forward, because just that offense in the second half, if I know this isn't exactly fair, but if you forget the fact that they did score 2 touchdowns on their first 2 possessions and that they walked right down the field, that second offense was really, really bad. The number of 3 and outs was really quite frustrating. That's what Matt LaFleur said, and it was really annoying. And this offense is going to have to get better. These players are going to have to grow up quickly, especially at the receiving core. And it's not an easy test going to Tampa Bay in the heat, in the humidity. I'm from Florida. I know how hot it is. Bron, you've been to Florida too, but you saw Lazard puking on the sideline after he scored a touchdown. Like, it is insanely hot. This defense is insanely good. It's a huge game.
Then why
it makes
are you so
sense
concerned? Then I don't. Why? What concerns you exactly? Because we're down.
Because
I
think they played really poorly. I think that they played really poorly. I don't think
they played as poorly as you think. I really don't. I think the defense that we were facing, from a talent standpoint, it's hard to beat those guys. It really is.
It is, yes. We learned that the hard way.
They weren't scoring on us either. It was that type of game. Sometimes it's a low-scoring game. It's the environment. It was tough. Tampa Bay hadn't played in that heat in a while because they played their first 2 games in domes, and we obviously haven't played in that kind of heat in a while, going back to early training camp maybe. I feel like the things that we didn't do so well in this game, we showed in Chicago that we could do well. And I don't think we have to worry. I feel like on offense, like what is your major concern? Is it the receivers? Is it the offensive line? Because those things are starting to come together, and we were missing guys last week at the receiver position. Rodgers looked really good. The protection was quite good for what I expected in terms of pass protection. I thought it was quite good, especially against that front. And the rotating left tackle situation. Everything else, the running game was my only concern, but we just showed what we can do against a good front in Chicago like the week prior. So to me, I'm not concerned about the offense whatsoever. At least, I'd have to see that if we struggle like this against a team like maybe New England, I guess if we struggle to put points on the board when they're going to be throwing their backup quarterback, Brian Hoyer, most likely out there, then you start to have those conversations of we need to start getting better on offense. But right now, I feel okay with where we're at based on the performances we've put on the board so far.
Let me clarify my concern here. I'm not concerned that they didn't score more points even. I did not expect them to come into this game and score 30 points. I am concerned, not that I'm even expecting them to not improve. I'm concerned that if they were to play like this in the playoffs against a team like Tampa Bay, who, let's be honest, we've lost to a lot of teams like Tampa Bay in the playoffs in the last 10 years. That's my concern. The concern is that these receivers are, that there is a world where this is like, it doesn't get better than this. And I hate being like this, but I do have to clarify because you were asking, Bron. That is what the concern is. Coming out of this game, I don't even feel bad. I feel great. We beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That feels good. But if there is a concern, is that it's these receivers are so young, and we saw them at their worst on Sunday. Not at their worst, but like we saw what can happen when we play a really good defense and we're not able to run the ball. And they play us with man coverage with really good cornerbacks and safeties.
So, okay, Christian Watson wasn't in the game, obviously. Sammy Watkins was out as well. Those are two guys I think we're going to rely on pretty heavily. I think Watson needs to – he's close. He's got to play more, obviously, but I think he's very close to being a contributor. Sammy, we saw what he could do in that.
I feel like Watson is really big, too. I feel like Watson that takes a big chunk out of their playbook, I feel like, because they've been using him as the Tyler Irvin, Tavon Austin role.
Yes, you saw, and also he's running routes too, which is great. I'd like to see him run more.
Yeah, right. And he's the deep threat.
Exactly.
Outside of him, Romeo's fast, but there's really no deep threat.
They haven't even tried that with Romeo yet. I think they could, but they haven't tried it to send him deep. They haven't done it often, at least. I haven't seen it much at all. But Christian is the guy that they're kind of letting do everything right now, and when he's on the field, he's a difference maker because, like you said, he is their best motion guy, and they really didn't do it much against the Buccaneers because he wasn't there. So that kind of changed things for the offense. Sammy, we saw what he could do in week 2. He provided a big spark with his veteran presence, reliability, experience, and he's just a great receiver to me in terms of what he can do for Aaron Rodgers, being a reliable target. Randall Cobb had a great game. These guys, I'm not worried about the receiving core right now just because how can they not get better when they had that kind of game to start? It's week 3, so I'm not really worried about a lack of improvement, especially when like you said, it's these young guys. And Romeo Doubs had a fantastic game for what he was asked to do, which is be a starter. And he did that.
Yeah.
He had, what did he have, 8 catches, Griff?
8 catches on 8 targets.
What more can you ask for? That's very impressive. And I was excited to see that he was able to step up, score a touchdown. What more can you look for in week 3 from a guy who has been in the league for 2 games and this one that he was just in?
I feel like a lot of people are forgetting because we've hyped him up so much all summer. Me and you, Bron, we did see him in person. People forget that. We've hyped him up so much all summer, right, that people are forgetting this is a 4th-round rookie in his 3rd career game, and he just caught 8 passes. The first Packers rookie to do that since, 1988, I think, something like that, something crazy. He's the first Packers receiver to catch 8 passes, not named Davante Adams, since week 1, 2018. It's kind of crazy what he's been able to do. If he was a 1st-rounder, it wouldn't be that surprising. It would still be impressive. But the fact that he's a 4th-rounder and he's been able to step right in and contribute like he did in this game, that's really impressive.
Well, Griff, too, he also has the highest passer rating when targeted among all rookies so far at the receiver position with 123.2, I believe. So he's definitely contributing, and it's only week 3. He's got a lot of time and growth ahead of him, which is exciting, and I think Christian is going to be involved in that same way, and hopefully have more opportunities. It looks like he'll probably be back this week too, which is good. Sammy's going to be sidelined for 4 games, 3 more now. But looking forward, when you're talking about looking ahead to the playoffs and this receiving core, I think this is a group that's going to improve in November, December, when it's time for the playoffs. These guys are going to be ready. I really think they are, and I'm not concerned. I'm not doubting the fact that they're going to improve because I've already been impressed with what they've done at this early stage of the season.
That's the hope. They're definitely going to need him to. Greg Olsen talked about on the broadcast how Matt LaFleur talked about in their production meeting, I guess, how he wanted to compare Romeo Doubs to Davante Adams, but had to stop himself from doing so. And it's honestly, It's not that crazy, I feel. I mean, it's crazy to compare him to the all-pro best receiver in football, Devontae Adams, but when you watch his releases, when you watch the way he catches the ball, when you watch the way he runs routes, like, do you not see a little bit of 2017 Devontae Adams before he had the swag, before he was an all-pro? Because I think it's there. He gets stuck at the line of scrimmage a little bit too often to be on that level, obviously, but when he runs a nice route, it is crispy, and it looks a lot like young Devontae.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of pressure to put on a guy, but I don't think it's far off for sure. He's got so many exciting skills and talents that you see on display when he's out there running routes against legit guys. That's a tough challenge for anybody, and he had success when he went up against those guys. And to me, it was an impressive showing. So, again, I'm not concerned about the present of this receiving core. I'm not concerned about the development over the course of this season with this group either. And I'm just excited because we saw what Romeo can do. Now we're going to hopefully get to see what Christian can do with a few more opportunities than he's had with Sammy Watkins being down for a little bit. And then once these guys all get healthy, including Randall Cobb, who's been fantastic so far. I can't say enough about the start he's had. But to me, this group is right now in a good position, and we haven't even mentioned Alan Lazard, who has made big play after big play since he returned to the lineup in week 2.
Yeah, Cobbie's a guy who looked good in training camp, too, which we talked about when we were up in Green Bay. And he was good last year, too, before he got injured. That's his biggest thing is if he can stay healthy. And we know now that when he is healthy, he's still just as – maybe not just as dynamic, but he is almost up there because he made Devin White break his ankles on the opening drive yesterday. He has been clutch. He's always open on third down for whatever reason. Rodgers trusts him,
good,
obviously,
Griff.
so much more than anyone.
It's because he's good. That's why he's open.
He is.
He's
yeah,
not this
he is
old
quite good.
guy. You painted him out to be this old guy. He's very good. He's a very good football player. He's a premier slot receiver in this league. 32 is not that old, Griff, and he looks spry, and he is very fast, physical. And like you said, he made that incredible move. I've never seen that in my life. He faked like he was going to cut to the sideline and just fooled Devin White, and I forget who else. He fooled 2 premier Bucs defenders. I think it was Carlton Davis. And he just went upfield for about 15 yards at least, and it was just incredibly impressive. That was just one of those plays where...
And that was on a third down, of course.
Yes, the savvy veteran on third down, and he makes this incredible move. Rodgers throws it to it's basically in the flat, right? Like
he's late to the check down, really.
It is late. It is very late, and Cobb maybe has less than 5 yards between him and Carlton, and Devin White's crashing to obviously make the tackle, and he fakes to the sideline and then just turns upfield so quick, and it's like, how do you even think to make that move? He knows somehow. I don't know how he sensed that Devin White was crashing. I don't know. It just, what a move. Like, that was.
I thought he was about to get smacked.
Yes, that's something that would be all over highlight clips, all over social media, everywhere, if that was a guy like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I thought that was a really impressive play and an awesome move from a guy that you can't say enough about and how important he is to this team being here. Especially what he's doing after the return and everything, and now him being the most reliable guy for Aaron is everything he does is so important.
And his 40-yard gain before halftime, too, that was really impressive. Another great run after the catch play. He just wouldn't go down. And I think it's funny, did you catch this? They showed Rodgers after the play looking at him, and he was looking at him like he looked at Devontae against San Fran a couple years ago when he converted that fourth down, where this is not a visual medium, but he's looking at him like his eyes are all wide.
I didn't see that, but the way that he was outrunning the defender, it was just like, man, and there's nothing better than when Cobby catches a ball and he just flips the ball and just lets all that
yes, he's electric, dude. And he's got his shoulder pad hanging out, and he's
every single time the shoulder pad is hanging out, he just made this massive play and he just lets out a roar. He is just absolutely electric after making a big play, and he gets everybody going, including me at home.
Including you. You're ready to run through a wall for this guy. Yeah, aren't we all, dude? Everyone loves Cobby. I mean, imagine if Rodgers didn't trade for him.
Wow. I mean, GM of the year should have been won at that move.
Executive of the year, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Trading for Randall Cobb.
He's just been a great addition to everything about this franchise, and he's almost somehow, because he's so talented and so good on the field, And I'm not overstating it because he doesn't blow the stats away, but he just does so many things on the field that are you can't. I mean, we'd lose games without. He makes the important plays, even though they're not a ton of catches or a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns. He makes these important plays that nobody else can make, and we would lose games without him. So it's so important, and he's done so much for this franchise, this city, this team, and he's the glue of it all. He should be a team captain, but I feel like he's just such a great part of this team, and I think he's going to be a key piece moving forward if we want to win a Super Bowl.
Definitely, man. You remember Arizona last year when all our guys had COVID and they were hurt and we had nobody except Cobby, and he puts the team on his back, 2 touchdowns. He's that type of player. When you need him most, he's going to be there. Only played 19 snaps on Sunday. I feel like the Heat had a lot to do with that. I feel like a lot of guys were on a pitch count. We saw a lot of drives open with, like, on defense, we saw a lot of drives open with Kenny Clark on the bench, like Jonathan Garvin starting drives. Like, we saw that a lot. I feel like the coaching staff was really factoring in the Heat. Obviously, David and Yash was a big thing, which LaFleur mentioned that goes back to his time in Houston as quality control coach, where they used to do that with a tackle who was injured. David apparently was not a fan of that, but I don't know. I feel like that's a good idea. You don't want to go 0 to 60 right away with a guy like this who's basically had 2 years on the bench from one injury. Well, not one injury. I know he's had numerous surgeries, but
right. I think it makes a lot of sense especially after what we saw in Detroit, where he went that game, and then obviously he ended up getting taken out when Aaron went out, but. To me, it just makes more sense.
How weird is that? This has been one of the weirdest injuries that I've ever seen in sports.
I guess
he was literally
some
back
kind of
last
setback. Year. Exactly, he was
against
back
Detroit. He came back. It's crazy.
I guess there's no guarantee now either that he's fully back. Well, this was good that he didn't push it completely to the fullest extent, because you don't want to see that he had a setback. Like, you want to limit the opportunities for setbacks, because if this is all part of the healing process as well, him getting back and playing well, and which I thought he played quite well for a return game. I was impressed some of the moving he was doing that was evident even on the live copy of the game. I was impressed with how well he played stepping in. Another thing that was weird to me was they waxed poetic about Elton Jenkins' return to the field, but they said nothing about the journey that David's been on for him to come back on the field. They really did not talk much, and Matt nor Aaron, they did not talk much about the fact that David was back and played really well, which I was a little surprised about. I don't know what
that was surprising.
I figured there would be this big emotional thing going on because of how I was not emotional, but I definitely was very thankful and excited to have David back, and I was just surprised that there wasn't more of a welcoming environment for him, especially after the game, after a big win where he had a big part in it. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, all we got was those pictures on Packers.com of Aaron and David hugging, smiling. They embraced after the first touchdown. If you saw, they touched helmets, did their thing. But we did see a lot of speculation earlier this week about, I don't know, these people on Twitter saying that Rodgers and LaFleur are throwing shade maybe at David by praising Elton. I thought that was ridiculous. I still find that really
that's
ridiculous.
definitely not what I'm getting at. But I was hoping that they would have that same kind of. It would have been
maybe
nice
it's because they already did that.
Well, it was weird because that was
last year.
They brought. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe they're not 100% sure that he's gonna be able to keep playing. Maybe they just don't want to Maybe they don't want to be presumptuous that he's 100% back now, I guess. And then I guess that's fair, right? But I definitely want more appreciation for David and what he's been through, because it's been a journey, and it's nothing that he wanted to go through. But I'm sure he's happy that it's all kind of come to this point where he has a chance to be a full-time starter again, and this was a great place to begin on that front.
Yeah, the offensive line as a whole, I thought they played. It's a really tough. We've talked so much about this Bucs defense, but they have a really, really great front. Even without Akeem Hicks, which we talked about him being out, it almost didn't even matter because they have the most aggressive, most athletic defensive front I think in football, and it's a really tough front to run against. It's a tough front to move around, but I thought the Packers. Looking at the numbers, it's hard to say they did a really good job, but I thought they held their own. Rodgers only took one sack, in part because he was getting the ball out of his hands, especially in the first half, and that last sack came on the last drive, which I feel the need to mention. I've seen some people complaining about him taking that sack as if it knocked us out of field goal range, but folks, that would have been a 57-yard field goal if he hadn't taken the sack. So
also, I'm not looking for him to throw an incompletion there and then stop the clock.
And that's what he said.
Exactly. If you're stopping the clock there, then you're just giving the Buccaneers more time to work with, and the time was a pressure thing for them for sure. When it got down to 30 seconds and then 20 seconds when they finally scored, that was a key factor. The fact that they had now no timeouts. It was important that we did what we did. I definitely don't want him to dirt the ball there when he's getting sacked, and then just for what? To try a 57-yard field goal.
And then we miss and Brady has it at midfield? Yeah.
Exactly. You got to I was not worried about that at all, and I was hoping that they weren't going to, look to go for some of those on those late drives. I think at one point it was like 4th and 5 or 4th and 4. I think it was 4th and 4, and they lined up to
from
go
like
for
the 49,
it.
I think.
Yeah, and they lined up to go for it, and I was thinking the outcome of this being, if it was successful, it'd be great, but the risk of giving Tampa Bay the ball with momentum from the defense, making a stop past midfield, like that was too dicey for me. So I had no desire to go for it there. I'd liked giving our defense more opportunities to make plays and having to make Tampa Bay go the distance, which they couldn't do all game. And we saw it again that they, in the final drive where they did have to go the whole distance. If for some reason Rodgers throws it in the dirt or whatever, we miss the field goal, then you're talking about they're going to have a chance to get a touchdown, and then there's way more time on the clock. I was happy with how things went. We played it well and smart. And I think that was a big reason why we won as well, because those, the little things like the time management, the field position battle, the special teams, all those things we seemed to win in those areas pretty clearly and decisively. And even though it was kind of a stalemate between the offense and defense in the second half on both sides, I think the small things we were able to control and handle, and that probably helped us get the edge over that great Tampa Bay Bucs team.
It was a weird game because it did feel like we kind of dominated. Maybe that's just because we had the lead the entire game and the Bucs couldn't move the ball. But it did feel like we were dominating that game. And it felt a lot like the 49ers game, funnily enough, in the playoffs that we lost. It's just the only difference here is that the special teams didn't give up a blocked punt for a touchdown and have 10 guys on the field for a game-winning field goal.
Yeah,
the special teams was quite good in this one.
That's why I think we're a Super Bowl caliber team, because some of those things that we had concerns about last year are gone. And we're missing Devontae, we're missing Zadarius Smith, but I feel like we're making up for it in different ways. And this team is more built to win a Super Bowl because it's a more complete group, a more complementary group, a little more seasoned every year. So I think that this team, and I had said, you remember, Griff, I said that this game was going to be a foundational win for the Packers defense in that Week 2 Chicago game. And then I said that this game against the Bucs, if the defense could go in there and win that game for us by shutting down Tom Brady's offense, it was going to be a major, major boon to what we were trying to do moving forward as a football team. Nobody expected our offense to go in there and score more than 20 points. I mean, it's just we had. I'm serious. We really, it would have been nice, and you would hope for that. And I think we both predicted it, right?
Yeah, we definitely did.
But that does. But it's just so it's tough. I mean, that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we had less receiving than I thought we would. At that time, I thought Christian Watson was going to play, which makes our offense a little bit more multiple and a little bit more explosive, with the variability to pass downfield more. But even with him, I still, it's tough to put that kind of points. That nobody's done that really against Tampa Bay yet so far. And we did enough. That's all you can ask for, and we didn't have to score all that much. The key to this game wasn't scoring; it was getting stops. It was those special teams, field position battles. Pat O'Donnell is looking like the best punter we've had in maybe since Tim Mastay, and I'm not joking. Like that, he looks very very good. And Amari
He does
Rodgers,
look good. He's the first punter that we've brought in who's actually able to it is Week 3. Corey Bajorka has impressed us in Week 3, so maybe we have to wait a little bit. But he does look really good.
Yeah, the difference I think there is O'Donnell has the Chicago experience of playing in the cold weather. So I think this is what an incredible signing, and they factored an off the field aspect into that signing, and because he's not a particularly when you looked at the landscape of guys, I think Corey Bojorquez was a guy they maybe I thought should have been brought back at the time, and he probably had a better year than Pat O'Donnell did last year. But when it got into those cold weather games, Bojorquez really, really struggled, just like J.K. Scott did and just like everybody else we've brought in. But O'Donnell he's experienced in that regard, and he kind of is a consistent kicker in that way, where he can still put the ball in great spots in those cold weather games, and we're going to need him then. And his production is probably going to go down a little bit, but he's been super, super impressive, and he's having an outstanding start to his season. But Amari Rodgers looked very good on kick returns and punt returns, and the protection, the gunners, or the flyers, as apparently Matt LaFleur is now calling them, but everything has been sound. The special teams, to me, has been impressive. So that's the reason we won, and I think that's going to be a big reason moving forward as to why we're going to keep winning under Rich Bisaccia and Matt LaFleur in terms of the head coaching responsibilities as well.
I don't know how to pinpoint exactly how I feel about the special teams, but it feels like that the Packers have done such a good job this offseason of like addressing it, but not overreacting to it. Like a lot of teams, they lose a game in the playoffs like we did, where your special teams just poops its pants on live TV.
And then you go tell every kicker you try out to kick a field goal from the same exact spot that it double doinked after the block. Chicago.
This is why we're such good friends, Bron. That's literally exactly what I'm thinking of. Matt Nagy making his kickers try kick from that exact spot. Like, that is so stupid, and it just feels silly.
That screams Netflix football movie, like.
It does. The Packers, they don't do that, dude. They don't do that.
Oh, that's Hard Knocks footage right there. That's Hard Knocks. That is like complete
Yeah.
Hard Knocks footage.
They bring in the coordinator, Rich Bisaccia. They address the punter. They bring in guys like Ford and Nixon, who have played really well, that Bisaccia has a history with. And they address it culturally, too, by calling it the we fence, they're calling it now. They play starters on special teams. It's their thing that they do, the we fence. But it's like they haven't made it their entire game plan of the offseason, is I guess what I'm saying. It just feels like they've done it in such a responsible way, where it's made a huge difference because they're playing so much better and they're not as problematic as they were last year, where they were literally losing us games. But I don't know. It just feels like it's a really mature thing of this franchise to do.
Yeah, they never really overreact. I mean, that's their MO is kind of stick to the game plan and
even when you trade the best receiver in football.
Yeah.
Don't overreact.
No, they don't. They don't. Although we do sometimes, but they certainly don't.
We definitely do.
We definitely overreact, which is why you probably all listen to us, I guess. But the maturity of Brian and Matt to not make some kind of, draft pick trades for special teamers or draft special teamers in the third, second, and first round. Like, they're not doing anything crazy to improve the unit. They know it's the little things, and I think they've done a great job of accomplishing everything they wanted to make this unit. It looks like right now the unit has turned from really, 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 really bad into quite good even so far, and it's only 3 weeks in, but they just look like it's a different mentality. It's important to them to get the job done. They know how costly it was last year, and I think they're ready to make sure that is not the reason why they lose a playoff game again.
Let's get into the defense here, Bron. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of exciting things to talk about. This was kind of the defense that if you go back and listen to our podcast from the month of August, this is what we were hoping it would look like, right? And if I said after the game against Minnesota, when a lot of people were really down on this defense, that I think this defense is going to fare a lot better, first of all, later down the line, because there were just a lot of busted coverages in that game that I didn't see persisting. But also I mentioned that I think they would fare a lot better against a team like Tampa Bay, who there's no window dressing, there's no play action, it's a very static, Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich is their offensive coordinator, but it's a very Bruce Arians style of offense, which in the modern NFL is really hard to succeed with, even if you have Tom Brady at quarterback. And we saw that on Sunday, because our guys were able to just match up one-on-one, even when Jair goes down, which he did early in the game. I think it was on the opening drive he went down, never came back with a groin injury, but even without him, Keyshawn Nixon steps in, and because the Bucs are so banged up at the receiver position, they weren't able to get anything going.
Yeah, they weren't, Griff, and I think a lot of that has to do with some of the interior pressure from Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary had a pretty solid game. I thought
Kenny
Carson
Clark
Smith,
is fantastic.
Kenny Clark was in terms of the defense, I think he was probably the most important guy in terms of getting to Tom Brady. He just did a lot of things really well. Of course, he always forces pressure up front, but I think he gave both the center and the guards a lot of trouble, and he was very violent. And you talked about this, Griff.
Yeah,
you talked about this too, Griff. When he gets off the ball much quicker than other guys, he's one of the first guys to recognize that the snap, and he is over the ball, to be fair, but he's in the center's face before he's even looked up, and usually it's night at that point. He's getting to Tom Brady, really pressuring him, and I think that was something that gives Tom Brady the hardest time is when the interior guy like Kenny Clark or an Aaron Donald, if you will, type, where it's in the interior middle area, gets through and forces Tom to kind of make some athletic play that we all know he can't make. And then Tom falls flat on his face before Kenny can even put two hands on him.
Tom had a couple just seriously funny sacks, dude. Like, he is so done trying to even get out of him. He just falls down.
He was frustrated. He was frustrated.
He was frustrated in a way, like, it didn't even look like he cared. Like,
yeah, that was
I've never seen him care that little.
People talk about, like, oh, Aaron doesn't. I've never seen Aaron do stuff like that. Like, he just does not. Like, he's like, man, I got an appointment with my plastic surgeon on Monday. I don't care about this game. Like,
you got a wife to worry about who's going to leave me.
I got a wife that I may not have in a week. Like,
I've never seen Aaron just fall down on the ground when someone's about to sack him. It's just so funny. Oh, my God. He looks like a 45-year-old man out there. But the Buccaneers did have Brandon Walton. Brandon Walton was starting at left tackle, his first career start. They had Luke Gadecki at left guard. He's a rookie.
He got tossed around like a Caesar salad out there, Griff.
He was getting abused by Kenny Clark. Dean Lowry even had a couple really nice bull rushes against him. Jerron Reed had a couple really nice reps. TJ Slayton, I can remember one, against Luke Gadecki. Luke Gadecki did not have a great game. He had a pass blocking grade of 32.3, I believe. He really struggled.
That's out of 100, by the way, folks. Yikes.
Yeah, not out of 50. And the left tackle, Brandon Walton, he got abused by Rashawn Gary for a lot of the game, too. So it was not an easy one for Tom Brady, and I feel like he gave up in the first quarter. I really do. Do you remember the 3rd and 12 play where it's a screen and Brady just chucks it at the ground? Like,
yeah, and Devondre caught it off the ground, yeah.
Obviously, quarterbacks do that when a screen is covered up, but he didn't even give it a chance to develop. He just spiked it immediately and didn't show any reaction, just walked straight to the sideline. Never seen anything like it on 3rd and 12.
I mean, yeah, he probably didn't even like that play call to begin with, I bet. You know, like, oh, we're calling a screen. We're clearly giving up here, so I you know what, I'm going to give up too. Just threw it to Devondre.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. But what'd you think of the coverage in this game, Griff? Because we talked about the pressure, which I thought was quite good, at least enough to disrupt some of the things Brady was doing. But when he was getting the ball out quick, not much you can do. But when we did get to him, we got to him.
Yeah, I already mentioned Jair going out in the first quarter, and Keyshawn Nixon really impressed me. So Rasul's been playing in the slot all season long. Jair goes out, we move Rasul naturally to the sideline, to the boundary, and we put Keyshawn Nixon in the slot, which all offseason we've been saying it's Shamar at number 4, but I guess it's Keyshawn, who they feel really comfortable with. And man, dude, I couldn't help but be reminded of Rasul Douglas from last year. The way he comes in, he's immediately serviceable at worst. He gave up a couple catches. But, you know, you expect that out of your bench cornerback.
Yeah, that's fine to me. I mean, look,
and
the
he's
fact that
making
Rasul,
plays.
Yes, and Rasul is on the boundary now, and he looks just like he did last year when he was balling out on the outside. Like,
yeah,
both those guys pretty seamlessly transitioned into those roles in a pinch. I mean, when your number 1 corner goes down, like, whew, that's not good. But they made it work, and I get that those guys that they were facing weren't ultra talented, but I mean, Keyshawn Nixon is not some guy that everybody knew about as this like guy who can step right up and play really well. I mean, he came
definitely
in,
not. Yeah,
he had some coverage deflections. He had some just great coverage snaps. I thought he was quite impressive.
Fumble right away.
Fumble, I mean, electric stuff.
That's what reminded me of Rasul, dude. That's what reminded me of Rasul. Rasul steps in last year, immediately starts creating interceptions and turnovers, and what do you know, Keyshawn.
And it's the same way with like Preston Smith and Rasul. Like even when those guys aren't like dominating in coverage or in terms of Preston getting to the quarterback, they create turnovers. They make big plays that excite the crowd or just get the team in a different momentum set. It's just like this different type of player who they change the game in a way that it transcends the stat sheet. It's just stuff that you can't really put on a piece of paper, but those guys do it well. And I think Nixon kind of came into the game, like you said, and did some things that you can't really measure, but he also put up some nice statistical, a pretty good performance, I'd say, as well. So a lot of good from him, and it's really, really nice to see that we have some depth there that I know you and I both, Griff, and a lot of Packers fans were very concerned about the depth after the first three. We know the first three are elite, all-pro caliber cornerbacks, which is great. But after that, like we said, if Jair or Stokes or even Rasul goes down, what's going to happen? Well, we just saw and have evidence to show, and now momentum moving forward, that Keyshawn Nixon can come in and play well, which is a great thing.
Yeah, he really did play well. He definitely impressed me because I really didn't have any expectations for what to expect from him. It went a lot better than the Isaac Yiadom experience last season against the Bears Week 6, if anyone remembers that. That was a short-lived memory. But I thought another thing...
Do you remember when I said this was last year, I said we'll never say his name again? And you just said it. I'm shocked.
I broke the streak. But another thing I thought Nixon did really well was tackling. You can tell he's a special teamer at heart, bro, because he can tackle.
That's a great point.
Like,
that's a great
it's hard
point.
to find corners who can tackle really well. Even Jair, who's a pretty good tackler, it's like the best tacklers at cornerback go for the legs. They just throw their body at the legs. But Keyshawn really wraps up nicely. So does Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas had 8 tackles. Keyshawn had 6, second and third on the team, respectively. That's what you look for in like bench players at the cornerback position, especially guys who can come in and you're not expecting them to lock up receivers, especially in passing downs when you're playing Tom Brady, who's losing in the second half. Like, I'm not expecting Keyshawn to come in and have an Eric Stokes type of performance. I say that because Eric Stokes was targeted one time, gave up 1 catch, 6 yards. He was outstanding.
He was basically not even looked at by Tom Brady, that whole side.
When has Tom Brady ever done that to any cornerback?
I don't know. Maybe Jair once or twice. Yeah, but even Jair, when he would face Mike Evans in some of those games that we've played with Tampa Bay, Jair usually gets opportunities to make plays because they'll still target Mike Evans regardless of who's there. And Jair had a lot of success against Mike Evans in those matchups, but we didn't really get the chance to see what he would do. But you gotta pick somebody, right? You gotta target somebody. I don't know what their plan would have been if it was a full game of Jair and Stokes with Rasul in the slot, but we got a chance to see what they would look to do, and they tried to pick on Keyshawn, but he didn't always falter like I'm sure many Bucs fans would hope. He played quite well, and then they didn't even bother with Eric Stokes because he was pretty gluey the whole night, and it was exciting to see him come out and put on a performance like that after maybe a rough week 1 against the Vikings and a rebound week 2, but still not exactly where you want him to be. I think this game against Tampa Bay was a great momentum builder for him moving forward.
Gives you a lot of confidence, definitely. Brady kind of went with the your favorite anecdote to bring up, the Chandon Sullivan, Kevin King theory from the NFC Championship game, where when you've got a weak link, against a quarterback like Brady especially, you're just going to kind of pick at the weak link, and that's kind of what he did with Nixon. So, but yeah, Eric Stokes, not targeted. That one target, I want to say, came on the opening drive as well. So, yeah, he played really, really well. I'm excited about this secondary group, man. They're really good. Adrian Amos was looking really good too. Darnell was in position on a lot of throws. Even on the final 2-pointer, he was in
just
position.
Going to say, Griff, he looked like he was going to be making a big-time play there if it wasn't for Devondre getting there first. And let's talk about that play. So we get that whole drive was a little, it seemed like we really let them get past the 50, and then we started to tighten up once it got there. But they still,
dude, they hit the check down to Fat Lenny like 8 times in a row. Like, we just refused to cover the flat for whatever reason. That was really annoying.
Fine. The one thing that sucked was that they kept getting out of bounds. I was hoping they'd at least try to make sure that they stayed in bounds. Right? The one really,
a lot of
really
miscommunication on that drive, I believe.
Yes, there was some. I think Quay had a couple plays where he was supposed to be in.
Quay blitzed when he was definitely not supposed to blitz on one of those plays on the final drive.
And then I think that was one where Lenny was wide open, but whatever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he'll learn from it, whatever. It didn't cost us. And like we talked about earlier with Rasul, the one play that was really important on that drive, I thought, was when I forget who the receiver was, but he made this tackle that was on the sideline, and you could tell the receiver
Oh,
was
yes, dude.
trying very hard to
Yes.
get out of bounds. He flattened him right in bounds on,
And,
on the
he
sideline.
wrapped himself around him to,
Yep.
the angle from what he was running at would have tackled him out of bounds. But Rasul made sure to, wrap himself so that he tackled him in bounds. And it was a great tackle, too.
Yes, he almost
it was Russell Gage, that was.
He almost bear hugged him and just fell downward on top of him and made sure that you said it was Russell Gage, and he locked him down and made sure he didn't get out of bounds. That was a crucial play because then the Buccaneers kind of had to hurry up and get something off. And that was the beginning of a lot of discombobulation that the Buccaneers had to basically endure that whole drive from whatever was going on. But looked like 2 delay of games, only 1 was called. Just a lot of chaos on that drive for them for whatever reason. But they ended up getting that touchdown after and you know what I will say, we watch a lot of Packers games and Aaron Rodgers, and we see that he always gets that extra little second. And I don't know how true this is for all of these other teams, but we know how much it happens for the Packers, where he will at times, probably once or twice a game, it gets to 0, and they get that extra beat, and they snap it, and there's no penalty, and I'm okay with that. But that was a little long for me on that 0. That was a little long.
Was it?
Usually you get the 0, and I will give you that 0.25 seconds, right? But
what they say is that they try to give you because the play clock doesn't show what's in between 0 and 1 second.
Yes.
All the milliseconds they count down. So they want to give you that. Right?
I believe me, I get that, but to me it was too long. You get the 0, you look up, it's at 0. They should once that thing, because they snapped it, and to me they should have blown that dead, because the snap was probably a full second after it hit 0. To me, I don't know if
it
you
was
agree.
It was quite long, yeah.
So that's, to me, that.
And then I can't believe they did it again on the 2-pointer.
That exactly, and that was off of
what?
And that was off of a stoppage on the touchdown too. That's just, it's remarkable how that would happen. But whatever, to our benefit, they ended up having to go from the 7. I think that kind of made up for the missed one that they had there, having to go for 2 from the 7, certainly. And of course, we don't know exactly what went down with Aaron Rodgers on the sideline and what they showed on the Jumbotron, whether it was something he just saw in the formation that they might have showed on the Jumbotron, or if they showed something on the sideline with a coach or a tablet with something, you know what I mean? Rodgers had something, though, and it clearly was correct, and it worked because the defense was prepared. Rodgers relayed this information to LaFleur, who told probably Joe Barry, who then made the play call, who told Devondre, and Devondre is obviously the signal caller in terms of relaying it to the guys wearing the green dot on the helmet. And who makes the play? Devondre Campbell was right in position, as was, like we mentioned, Darnell Savage, who seemed to have a bit of a rebound game. I think both those safeties did. But again, Devondre was there. He made the play before it even became an issue, batting that ball away, all-pro type of play in the biggest moment. He had a fantastic game, and that's exactly what you're looking for. And that's why this defense is the victor in this game, and it's going to be a big propeller into what we will become moving forward as a top defensive unit across the league.
I saw someone on Reddit who was at the game. This is from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt. But they said that on the Jumbotron they showed Brady's tablet, which was looking at, I guess, just the straight up play diagram of what the 2-pointer was going to be. I don't know how much that makes sense, because I don't know if you really pull up your plays like that on the tablets. I don't know. It's from Reddit, so who knows? But I mean, I feel like that's one of the only feasible explanations for what Aaron saw, because everyone's being so secretive about it. They asked Matt about it at his press conference on Monday, and he would not give any information. He just kept saying that's a question for Aaron. Aaron's not going to give any information. Maybe he will on McAfee.
I highly doubt he's going to get specific on what he saw. But I mean, again, I don't know what else could it be. I think the only thing that I was thinking was that he might have seen an alignment that he recognized, that maybe it was a play that the Packers run or a play that they studied. I something with the movement they made where the receiver went behind the tight end was talked about, and Rodgers may have alerted that to the head coach, but that seems like a quick it must have been something before the play. I don't know what it was, but I don't know how it happened. Maybe it was something like that where the play specifically, Rodgers looked at the alignment, told coach this is the one that I mentioned to you because maybe he said it earlier. It's all dependent on when all this happened. It's still a very interesting, fascinating part of that's another off the field aspect of what wins you football games. That whatever Aaron did was important to what we were able to do on that 2-point conversion, and it looks like who knows what would have happened, but it's important. It's all that. It's every little advantage you can get, you take it, and they did that within the league rules. To me, that is that's at the Buccaneers' fault. I'm excited to officially say that we have now beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we are only going up from here.
And it's because of the defense too. This is everything we've dreamed about all offseason, man. This is the defense that we wanted to see. The Buccaneers, they opened with a 10-play drive. They closed with a 13-play drive. Everything in between was complete garbage. They were hard pressed to get a first down. Of course, they opened with a 10-play drive though, because it kind of goes back to what I talked about last week, where it's like feels like this problem goes back to last year as well, where we always kind of struggle on the opening drive, it feels like, don't we? And the first play of the game is a deep shot to Brashad Perriman. Very weird, but I don't know. Maybe that'll change as the season goes on. They'll just be better, more prepared to open the game. But it doesn't even matter because they scored 3 points off of that, didn't score a point until, 30 seconds left in the entire game. They did score a field goal. But, the fact of the matter is they didn't score a lot of points, so it ultimately didn't end up mattering that much.
No, it didn't, Griff. And now, moving forward, you look at the performance we had on defense, which was one that is going to, like I said, it's going to put us in that conversation. I think the defense itself knows, but across the league, I think we are now widely recognized as a top defense. Now, the offense showed enough to me that it proves we can play really well, even against a good Buccaneers, really, really good Buccaneers defense, even if it was only for a short time, that first quarter, first half. But that's enough for me. We showed we can do it, and that's all that matters. It's about showing these flashes. In week 3, it's just all about showing that you can do it. And we did that on both sides of the ball. We did that on special teams. Now we go into week 4 looking to get a big win to put us at 3-1, and then we start adding these wins to what we're now looking to do and putting us in a position where we take that NFC North lead from these other 2 teams that also are 2-1, and we just continue to ascend in the NFC and separate ourselves from these other teams, and then we kind of get back to where we were last year, where we just get in a position to make the playoffs, hopefully have a couple home games, at least one, right, and then we do what we can to win, and we're putting ourselves in a position to have success, and I'm excited about the way this team's going right now.
We knew the defense was going to have to kind of carry us, especially early on, right? We knew there was going to be growing pains with the offense, and they've certainly done that. We just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers off of that effort by the defense, so not much to complain about, nothing to complain about on the defensive side. Hopefully Jair Alexander is okay, because as much as I love Keyshawn Nixon, I'd much rather have Ja Money out there because he is quite good, isn't he? Anything else you want to touch on here, Bron, or do you think we can wrap it up?
No, Griff, I think we pretty much covered it, but what a win. That's a big win. To get a win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you told me that we would be 2-1 coming out of this tough 3-game stretch of Minnesota, Chicago, and Tampa Bay, I would be pretty pleased. And I think now that we're in that spot and you look at the schedule moving forward, we do have the Patriots without their starting quarterback. Then we have the Giants in London, which I think should be a win after they just lost to the Cowboys. You have then the Jets, who are the Jets. And then you have the Commanders, who are the Commanders. And then you have the Buffalo Bills. So we could be looking at 6-1 heading into that game, which will be a fantastic, exciting game. So to me, I'm excited. I'm ready. And I think this is... moving forward, we should all be really excited.
It's weird how much this season is shaping up like last season, early on at least. Like, we open with a we open up on the road, lose in disappointing fashion. Week 2, we bounce back in a primetime game at home against an NFC North rival. Week 3, we go on the road and play an NFC powerhouse. Week 4, we're back home against an AFC team with a great coach and a great defense and a bad quarterback. How weird. Week 4 last year, we played the Steelers. I don't know if you remember. So, kind of weird Kind of weird thing going on with these schedule makers. I'm on to you. The trend kind of stops with week 5 when we go to London, because I don't think we went to London in 2021. But yeah, okay, so that's going to do it. Yeah, that's going to do it. So thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back later this week with a preview podcast for the New England Patriots, who will be without Mac Jones. So stay tuned for that. We did a preview podcast for the Buccaneers game. That's why we didn't talk about it on the last podcast. If you did listen to that, let us know what you thought of it. Let us know what you think of the layout there, the 2 podcasts a week. I think we're going to start doing that. So let us know if you like that. If you hate it, let us know too. We always like feedback. DM us on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Share the podcast with your friends and family. Subscribe on all platforms. Rate it 5 stars. Yada, yada, yada. And that's everything. Okay.
A little tired there, Griff, huh?
A little bit. I've said this a lot of times in my day. 4 years we've been doing this. Well, 3 years, but this is our 4th season. So our anniversary was last week. Forgot to mention it.
You didn't even buy me flowers.
Oh, yeah. It's been fun. Okay, so we'll be back later this week, like I said. And what a great win. I feel very good about this win.
What a win. That's an NFC powerhouse we just beat.
Yep. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
My least favorite NFL player.
My least favorite human.
Okay, that's going to do it. Go Pack Go.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Go Pack Go.